All righty. Thank you very much, Marshall. Welcome, everybody. Today is May 3rd, 2023. This is CALPADS Q A, and my name is Alex Manriquez. I'm a data analyst at CSIS supporting CALPADS, and driving for us today is Mr. Gary Brewer. In terms of announcements, again, reiterating that the submission window for end of year is starting May 8th, and that is next Monday. And all that means is that you're going to start seeing certification errors. You're going to start seeing the snapshot reports. Those are going to be running now. And the key point here also is your end of year files can be submitted now. So if you haven't started today it's not too late. You can go ahead and start submitting any end of year files just to kind of get ahead of the game, right? You don't need to wait until Monday to start doing that. And also a reminder that your cohort is also due on the same day as your end of year. So both the final deadlines are August 25th for both cohort and end of year. However, for end of year, we have the initial deadline of July 28th. Right? So it's important that you have all your ducks in a row for end of year by July 28th. And don't forget about your cohort due on August 25th, which is the end of the amendment window. A lot of the times people forget cohort, but that's still important for all of you high schoolers out there. The other announcement was just that Flash 250 went out today, just, I don't know, an hour ago or something. But it's about PBT information. Super long, it's 11 pages. We're not going to go through all of that today. But what's important here is that you please be mindful of the deadlines on that first page there, right? It's very comprehensive. So when you get a chance, if you can't fall asleep tonight, maybe this is something you want to read. But just go through it because it has a lot of really helpful information about PBT. I know that the quarterlies were just wrapping up. I don't know if Martha and or Angela are back. Doesn't seem like it, huh? So.
Not yet.
All right. We're on our own, folks. I don't think any CDE people are here. Oh, I see Chris is here. So, Chris, be ready for Fed questions.
There's also an Andrew.
Awesome. Okay. All right, guys. Teamwork. And if we can't answer your question today, always submit a ticket. We'll get to you eventually. But with that, unless anybody else has anything to say, we're going to start. All right. Oh, okay. So at 3:01, Paul, thank you, Paul, posted the Flash that just went out. So Flash 250 can be downloaded at the 3:01 timestamp. We're going to start off with questions from Laura from Santa Rosa City Schools. Question 1. For students who are given classroom suspensions under Ed Code 48910, how do we record these in CALPADS? For example, an 8th grade student is rude to the teacher and it is determined to suspend them from second period for 2 days. The student spends second period in the office completing work. So these are classroom suspensions, right? I'm not off the top of my head. I don't know what Ed Code 48910 is. And I don't know if that's the defiance one. I would assume because they're just rude, that would be the defiance one. So if it is the defiance one, you cannot suspend students for just defiance, right? So you should not report that as a suspension to CALPADS. That would be only 48900 to 48915, where for students that are in K through 8 can be suspended, should not be suspended for just defiance. Now, I don't know, Laura, if that answers your question, but okay, Sean, thank you. It says classroom suspensions do not get reported. Okay, cool. Moving on, Alex, not Manriquez. from Marin. Question 1 says, is the LEA contacts website on the CSIS webpage being worked on? When I look at it, there are no schools listed. All the entries say undefined. Thanks in advance.
And I can answer that one. It is fixed. I think I fixed it. Just make sure that you go in and actually do a refresh in both your browsers. Close your browser down and bring it back up. That happens when we get duplicate contacts in the list, and it crashes it. So it's back up and running now.
Seems to be working here.
Rebecca from Lancaster, Q1. Per the info in the flash received today pertaining to June 30th, 2023 for school year PBT 4.0, LEAs must submit the student absence summary status file by month to the Independent Study Attendance Collection ISAC reporting system by June 30th, 2023. The ISAC will open on May 12th, 2023 and close on June 30th, 2023. Will we receive an email like we did last year with the link to upload these status extracts by month? To be honest, I don't know if the Flash has any link to it. I would think that it would.
We just got it. We haven't had a chance to read the full
Right. I was just
yet.
going to say,
Oh,
I
hi.
don't, hi, we just finished up the last quarterly. So Martha and I are hopping over. I did ask Paula to join, but unfortunately she is busy because I told her, there's probably going to be a million questions on the PEBT Flash, but nobody from CSIS has got a chance to read it yet because we've been in our quarterly meetings. And so I'm not prepared. And Alex, I doubt you are to take any of those questions, but Paula said she would join us next Wednesday on the Q&A. So she did say, take your time to read it thoroughly because she said it can be kind of confusing. And so we need to digest it. So if there's missing information, we'll certainly follow up with another flash and include that.
Thanks. Glad to have you back. All right. Let's see. Next is Mary Masters, Q1. Regarding validations for suspension days and attendance days coded as suspension, can you review the validations? I believe it is that if I report a suspension day in STAS, there must be a corresponding day of suspension in SIRS and vice versa, but not clear on if they have to match number for number and date for date. So if there is a suspension in the STAS, then you're right. CALPADS is going to expect that there is a corresponding student incident result for a suspension. However, there is no backwards. So if you report a suspension, CALPADS isn't validating that the STAS has a suspension, right? It's only from attendance to SIRS, from STAS to SIRS. And it's no match by date because the SIRS doesn't have a date for when the result happened, right? It's just the duration of how many suspension days or how many expulsion dates. So you don't have to worry that your incident results match with the STAS dates that you're giving us. Sean, they were answering final questions, so thank you. I'm just glad that we have backup now. Mary, I just answered your question 1. So now we're with Rodolfo. Question 1. What is the impact of unresolved ERDs on end of year reporting, if there is any? I don't think that there are any. There's no anomaly threshold like we have for fall 1. So
ERD wise, some of that is could impact your adjusted for your cohort, right? If it's a potential dropout, you don't want that student necessarily to be a dropout. Maybe you want to find out what happened to them so that they can reflect in a more positive light of your adjusted cohort. So while we're not going to prevent you from certifying an EOI, we don't look at ERDs, it could make a difference in your graduate counts.
Thanks,
or dropouts.
Yeah. Padma, hi there, says that there is a link, but it's not open. Okay, cool. So the Flash does have a link, but it's not open until May 12th. Russell, question 1. To clarify the highest parent ed level, would this student count for SED if one parent was not a high school graduate and the second parent declined to state? And I believe both have
No.
to be,
Right. If you provide both parents information, both have to be did not graduate in order to be socioeconomically disadvantaged.
Angela from Bonita Unified, question 1. My CalPADS LEA administrator says she has not received any email notifications regarding the ASVAB or ISAC ad hoc data collections. Where can I find this information? Is there a way to get a copy of the emails that were sent out? So for ISAC would be this flash, right? As far as ASVAB goes,
That may not have gone out yet.
okay.
We got to refer back to what was in the quarterly. There's a resource page though. So maybe send them the link to the resource page for ASVAB.
Okay.
Martha, your microphone is breaking up a little bit.
I believe that Paula mentioned that for ASVAB, it was sent or it was going to be sent to the LEA accountability coordinator. I don't know when that communication would be sent out. Laura, we answered your question 1 already. Rebecca from Fresno COE. Regarding the defiance of suspension question, teachers are allowed to suspend for defiance. Flash 153 has information on this. Okay. And Dana from Apple Valley, question 1. If a student is in grades K8 and was assigned multiple violations, and one of them being 48900K, and they were suspended, is that okay since there's more than one violation listed? Does it matter the order of the violations, or should no K8 students be suspended for 48900K no matter the order? My understanding is that if that's the only violation, then it shouldn't result in a suspension or expulsion. But if it's one of the violations, there's more violations involved in the incident, then suspension is acceptable. In terms of the order of the violations, CalPADS doesn't have an order, I don't believe. Like a hierarchy of which one is higher or which one comes first. We just take all of the offenses. Okay, so Rodolfo, I'm going to write you down as a question 2. 312. Mary Masters, I think it's just an FYI. That information for the ISAC is included in the flash, or sorry, the link that she provides at 314. So thank you for that. Fabiola, question 1 says, hello, an SSID retired in March. SSID is still showing in TOMS for testing. Our testing coordinator reached out to ETS and was told it was a CalPADS issue, even though CalPADS shows the SSID as retired. Can you please guide me on what I should do to have this retired SSID record removed from TOMS?
We've gotten a few tickets like that in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
For retired students showing on TOMS. I've just been forwarding those to CDE.
Same.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Fabiola. We would need a service desk ticket with all that information, and we will assign it to CDE level 2. Those folks have access to the TOMS system. Well, us at CSIS, we do not.
And my understanding is that TOMS had a process in place to reconcile the retired SSID. So maybe something.
I thought so too. But
maybe they got a backlog on something. So CDE has to check into that for you.
But you can do it through the CalPADS service desk for sure.
Evan says nothing has gone out yet to the Secure Accountability Coordinator listserv related to ASVAB. Thanks for that. And a follow-up from Angela on her question 1. I thought I heard Paula say the ASVAB email was already sent out, so that's why I wasn't sure. Okay. Amy, question 1. What happens to the ERDs we have reviewed but could not make any corrective changes due to the issue is with another district's record? Nothing really happens to them, right? They just kind of hang out.
And we can't mark them as reviewed, Angela, like you can on others.
Oh, I was just pulling that up. I thought you could. Thought we used to be able to. I'm checking to make sure we didn't lose that functionality when the file submission redesign. But yeah, you used to be able to flag them and say it was reviewed, and then you could just filter on not reviewed. Yeah, that feature is still there. So
Okay.
you've done your due diligence, and then just mark it as reviewed, and that way it's not distracting you anymore.
Just
If you
following up.
really, if you want to, you could follow up with the LEA if you really feel there's something in dispute. But
Yeah, she says
other than
they
that.
might end up as a dropout, and not necessarily. It kind of depends on the data scenario, but we provide the anomaly contact for you on that when you open it up.
I think that's the end of question 1.
It's so quick.
People are burnt out.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So we're circling back to Rodolfo at 312. Question 2 says, so ERDs mainly concern the 4-year cohort schools. Thanks for the clarification. That'll have the biggest impact for sure. I think it's also just a matter of making sure that you are, if you're not a high school, just to make sure that you're following up on all those students that perhaps were expected to enroll at another California school, but then they didn't, right? So just doing your due diligence there to make sure that you know what happened with that kiddo. You guys are being too kind. Thank you.
It's good because Alex had to do 2 quarterlies already today.
Spontaneously too. She's
Yeah,
she's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
She filled in Brandy's big shoes at the drop of a hat.
Yep, she's got a talent for improv.
Okay, here they go. Coming in
Yeah.
hot. All right. Question 1. If a student finishes grade 12 with us, but does graduate, then goes on to another school in CalPads, is the expectation that we change our E230 360 to a 160? Oh, but doesn't graduate, I think is what that meant to say. Yes, I don't think that you're going to get an error, or the other schools. I don't think the other school would get an error either if you kept it as a 230 360. But if you see that the student does go to another school, then you can change that to a T160.
I think the only thing that they would experience is seeing it as an ERD, previous complete or re-enrolled.
Mm-hmm. Coming full circle with the ERDs today. Larney from Oxnard Union says, a student with disabilities with a Y indicator and SSID extract. What is the criteria for the Y indicator? Is it just an student with disability status, or should the student have an open plan, services, and meeting? That kind of sounds like a SPED redesign. Are you talking currently what indicates a Y in the SSID? If you are talking about just currently, it's just an open SPED record with no exit date. Yeah. So if the student has a SPED record that is open, meaning that there is no exit date on that SPED record, then that should be a Y indicator. And it's regardless of what district or what LEA had that last SPED record. Laura's question 2. I cannot locate /153. Could you link it here?
And Rebecca posted it.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks, Rebecca. Chantel from Pacific Charter Q1. We are an independent study charter. We started using T168, but now some are showing us ERDs. Should we change the exit code to E140? I'd be curious to see the scenarios, I guess, and what ERD type you're getting. So maybe a ticket, Chantel, and you can put attention Alex, and I can review those students. But the T168 was created so that if a student was in an alternative school, which would be an independent study, right, and they're referred back to their comprehensive high school or school, then the T168 would be the appropriate code. So 320, Marshall posted the transcript.
Yeah, that's the transcript from the the quarterly today. I went ahead and posted it in there just in case people forgot to download it.
Robin from Benicia, question 1. If I want to start working on ACGR early, yay, can I use the reports on reports accountability monitoring reports cohort outcome now, or do I have to wait until next week? Cohort reports are available year round, so you don't have to wait for anything. It's not based on any submission window, or literally you can do it whenever your heart pleases. And you can also look into the future. So not only can you pull out cohort reports for current cohort, but you can also look for future cohorts to kind of get ahead of the game. And in fact, we recommend it, particularly because when you're trying to figure out what happened to your dropout students, your registrars are more likely to remember who those students are a year after it happened, more so than 3 years or 4 years down the road, right? So the more that you can be proactive, the better. So August, you can pull out the report and just, filter or keep pulling the report every month or every week if you wanted to. But yes, those are available now. Angela from Bonita says, just curious, would it be easier on the presenters if there were only 1 or 2 quarterly live webinars each quarter rather than by region? 5 presentations seems like a lot.
Is a lot. I was thinking the same thing, Angela. It's like,
I think we all were feeling it today.
10 hours. My goodness.
Yeah, I'm sure that we will be discussing it.
I think the thought was originally, this is Brandy's brainchild, that the region, folks could get to know each other, but also that rather than have a statewide sim like we used to, having smaller groups, the Q&As are much more manageable, and that's true. We're able to get through all of our questions usually within the 2 hours.
Amy, question 2. How do I, as a CALPADS person, help the management site principals to understand cohort-related data? I'm not clear what things I do specifically beyond clearing ERDs as much as I can, completing EOY 1 reporting and all data point reporting for each season. For some reason, I just can't seem to wrap my head around this subject. It is quite complex. We have YouTube videos available on the CSIS channel that'll kind of guide you through, what scenarios and what to look for on the reports. But to fully understand membership and outcomes, we have trainings in Bridge that go basic level from the beginning, how to understand cohort. But essentially, it's the students 4 years. Within 4 years, a student is expected to graduate high school. And really, the main thing that I would say when you're talking to your team, your people on the sites, 15.2, filtering by school, and then filtering for all those students that are dropouts. Those I would say are primarily your students that you want to focus on. Earlier the better, so that you can figure out if those exit codes are correct, right? A student that was marked as going to another California school but never re-enrolled, that would be an ERD. But the ERD, I believe, has a specific date range, whereas the cohort spans, again, the 4 years. So perhaps while you are, maintaining your ERDs, you may have missed one that was from, 3 years ago or 4 years ago. So again, the Bridge trainings are important. The He says YouTube is important, but if you needed more help, you're my district, so you can just send me an email and I'll get in touch with you and we can talk through some things, or whatever it is that you need clarification on.
So Alex, I would add though too that I think you should work closely with your counselors, because I think they're the ones most responsible for knowing how many kids they should have as graduates, right? And they care about that rate, as well as principals. I think helping them understand that there are buckets that students fall into, buckets that can exclude them from the cohort that don't impact you. There's a bucket that if they don't graduate, it does impact your rate. And so for educating those people that care, like the counselors and site principals, is like, these are the buckets that we have to pay attention to because they will impact our rate. And by looking at the video, you can schedule a time and run the video while you guys are all in the same room and discuss what they're seeing and hearing and how does that relate to your local data and your local practices. But then fall back on Alex. She's a tremendous asset.
And I did place the URLs for the YouTube video for the cohort in the chat if you need it.
And I would say this kind of falls in line with the message that CDE is going to start putting out there, is that LEA and their leadership has to get more involved in understanding CALPADS and allocating adequate resources so that you folks can be successful, because the timelines are going to get shorter. And there's a lot of work that you have to do, and the leadership doesn't quite understand it. So CDE wants to be sure that they're aware of the effort and is expecting leadership to do more to help you guys out locally.
Moving on to Joanne LeGrand Elementary. Question 1 says, hello, newbie here to CalPads. Welcome, Joanne. Is there a step-by-step resource video of what fields are to be filled in when enrolling a student? Thank you in advance. Sure, we have a video for SSID requests somewhere.
More on here.
Where's Karen?
I know.
And I want to say that the user manual also has a page for SSID requests.
There is a playlist on the YouTube channel. Kind of at the top, we're at home, yeah, playlist. So
intro?
No, it would either be intro or fall one. I'm not sure the organization.
Wouldn't you be able to just type in the search?
Yeah,
SSID something?
I found it.
Found it?
Yep, I'm grabbing the URL right now.
Awesome.
I think it was under file submission redesign in that area.
Yeah, I went to what's new.
Uh-huh.
Person's not letting me reply to her. Here it goes.
Okay. Perfect. So that link takes you to the user manual and how to request an SSID, what needs to be filled out. Someone going to say something? Oh, okay. Amy is talking to Angela and Claudia, Q1. Why do CHESP completers count against the graduation rate? I think that they're their own bucket.
I know this one.
Oh, yay.
Because they're not high school completers. And as we've discussed before, the cohort, as it's reported to the owner of that survey, it's the United States Department of Education. Their definition of a graduate is a graduate completer, not a CHSP, not a GED, not an equivalent there too. They're looking for the actual high school diploma. If it's not a high school diploma handed to that student, it's not considered a graduate completer. So the data that's reported out of CDE gets boiled down to, are they an E230-100 or not? That's the dichotomy. So everything else that they fall into, whether it's a certificate of completion, a transfer, adult ed, whatever it is, those are all developed by CDE to give you at the LEA level additional data to help you figure out where your students are going, how they're ending up at the end of 4 years. If they're not a graduate completer, what are they? Because just saying, hey, you got 90% graduate completers, that leaves the other 10% completely undefined. So the 15.2 provides a lot of extra detail telling you where your students went. So the CHISP does not count as a high school graduate completer because it is not a high school diploma. Just pure and simple.
Thanks, Paul. Moving on now to Mario, Q1. I have a student who is on home hospital. He is now doing better and still on home hospital, but can come to school on a modified schedule. He comes every day for 5 periods. However, he leaves for the last 2 periods. I'm just confused on what to do with his last 2 periods because I cannot code them with home hospital codes. Hope this makes sense. Any suggestions? I'm wondering if, and maybe this may be a question for your SIS support, but I'm wondering if for the last 2 periods, you can code it as not for attendance on the section level, and therefore your SIS is only expecting you to do attendance from periods 1 through 3. And this may require you to create a different section, and then that way you can, it won't impact the other students.
And does your SIS have a attendance or a staff summary? Maybe it's not affecting the student at all. If the student's there long enough to generate ADA, it may just look like regular attendance.
True. And if any other person here has the same scenario, please feel free to share your knowledge. Yadira, question 1. I think that's Yadira. Could you please refresh me with exit 150? I am looking at my code translation for my SIS, and I do not see 150 for CalPads. Is this like a program grade change? Depending on your SIS, I know for Aries, they use code 440, and then you would translate that into your E150. But E150 exit code is for students who change grade levels, who change transfer codes, geographic residence, or enrollment status. Locally, you may use it for a program change, but CalPads doesn't need that in and out for a program. And then Leah, Leah says, I would love to see quarterly recorded. There's so much information to take in all at once.
That's still under discussion. We're working on that.
Marshall at the 327 timestamp gave us the link to the cohort YouTube recording. So 327. Amy says they don't even review the reports. Sorry, I'm still fighting every year to get somebody to care about the data. Thank you. Well, eventually they're going to care if they care about their dashboards. Those things are public, and their parents are going to ask questions. So, yeah.
I was going to say CDs will be sending out communication. So, hang on, Amy. They're trying to do more to help support you.
Quinn is talking to Amy. Dana, Apple Valley, question 2. Do we need to populate instructional support indicator for Gen Ed students too? When I read the data guide, it seems like we should. Yes, Dana. In fact, CalPads will give you an error but it's instructional support indicator is required for anybody that was suspended or expelled. even if it's so gen ed or student with disabilities, it doesn't matter. If there was a suspension or expulsion, you have to give us instructional support indicator populated. The only difference is that for gen ed students, instructional support indicator can be a yes if they were given homework, right? But for a student with disabilities, it's much more than that. It's where they provided with services or instructional support indicator as prescribed in their IEP. So that's the distinction. But yes, gen ed students should be populated as well. Carolyn from Las Virgenes. Question 1, our leadership forwards the leadership emails to me regarding CALPADS, not understanding that they are meant for them to read, to understand what we do.
Yikes.
Okay. And then Adriana, question 1, how often does the CALPADS report 5.7 get updated? Or when a new student is a newly enrolled student in the foster program, how is this data handled through CALPADS?
We update foster youth data weekly, right? Every Friday, you'll see, I think the column on the right-hand side, it has a date of when it got updated. Or when a new student is newly enrolled. You can't add them to a foster program. It's a statewide match, or you have to have a client ID to manually match them. So that's how it gets identified in CALPADS.
And so, I'm reading that question as they're just looking for the general overview of what's going on. So here on a weekly basis, CALPADS packages up all their student data anonymized, allows CDSS access to it to run their matching. And then they take, and it's not all foster youth are LCFF eligible. So only that subset of foster youth programs are included in that matching. So CDSS runs the matching and returns 2 files out of all of those CALPADS students. One with matched students, that's a statewide match, they're already there. And then the other one just has all of the LCFF eligible foster youth IDs and anonymized identity right there. And they send those back to CALPADS. So then they upload that file that shows everybody's a foster youth, and the one that's unmatched sits in the background waiting for local match attempts. So if you go, well, I know that Johnny's a foster youth, and well, I talked to his caseworker, and here's his case ID, and you go into CALPADS and you go over and you go in there and you put in his SSID and you put in his case ID and you hit manual match, and then it checks that file. And if that ID is sitting in that file, it will allow you to match it. But if the student is already matched using a different ID, it will tell you that. Or if the student's not, or if that program isn't eligible, it'll just say no match available. So for your purposes, as a new student comes in, just know that next week, so long as the week after you put their SNR data into CALPADS, you will get a return on them, whether they're matched or unmatched. And if you have inside knowledge that they are a foster youth and you know their social worker, you can get the IDs and log them manually, but it is generally a statewide match.
Awesome. Mini training on foster. And then Marshall's at 337 timestamp gives us additional help for getting SSIDs and gives us the fall 1 submission table of contents. Rebecca says, parents don't care either. I say we hit them in the pocketbook. LOL. They will care about reviewing the reports then. Claudia, question 1. Oh, we already answered this one. Gabrielle, question 1. How do I find out if the IEP implementation login info was emailed to our SELPA? That's a great question. I don't know. Chris?
Hi, Alex.
Or Joe? Hi, you're here.
It's actually, we sent information out on May 1st. So if you have not received yours and you are the SELPA director, send us an email at iepImplementation@cde.ca.gov. And we'll look it up because there were some updates to the database that contained all the information for all the current SELPA directors, and some of those are out of date, so we may have been overlooked inadvertently. So if so, we apologize. Just send us an email and we'll follow up and get that information out to you.
Thank you.
Chris. And can you add also, Chris, on the message box to the email address again?
Oh, yes, I can add that to the chat.
Chat, rather. Thank you.
Yes. Good idea, Joe. Thanks.
Alex, back to Rebecca's point about getting your local administrator to care. The times that I've had their attention hotly is when they've made the news. So it's after the fact. DataQuest has published the data. Some media has picked up on something that is obviously out of whack. Suddenly the superintendent is calling CSIS, right? So maybe dig up some of those horror stories and say, well, this cannot be us. We don't ever want to be here. What kind of strategies can we come up with as a team to make sure that, we're covered all our bases before we certify?
Sean, question 1 says, I'm not sure who's driving, but may we please see where to log manually the foster match? I think I have one to complete. And then
Online maintenance. Then there's a section. Yeah, that one.
I'm sorry, guys. I lost my headset, so I don't know if you can hear me or not.
we can hear you.
Okay.
There you go, Sean. So that's where you enter SSID and case ID. Dominic from Fresno County SELPA says, our SELPA received our LEA's information. Okay, perfect. And Chris, 343 timestamp gave us the email for where to send in questions about your IEP implementation. So I am going to copy that.
And I also should have clarified, Alex, that the information is first sent to the SELPA directors, who will then disseminate the access codes to the individual LEAs. So if you're an LEA and you haven't received your access code, you need to contact the SELPA director for that information. They should have it at this point. And if they don't, contact us at the email address and we'll try to help you out.
Cool. Rebecca saying, yes, Angela, so true. Sean says, thank you. Rebecca says, LOL, I thought you were going to say you lost your head, Paul, not headset. Oh, Gary, that was. Mary Masters says, my strategy for getting the reports looked at is I download them so my admins don't have to wait for CALPADS. I used to pull direct when meeting and they don't have time for that. Then we set a meeting to review the downloaded reports. Yeah.
Great strategy, yeah.
What I was going to say is it was mentioned in the quarterlies, but I think it's worth repeating for the SPED folks that what we've heard sometimes is that you send the SPED reports over to the SPED department and they send it back immediately. Yeah, sure, everything looks good. And most of the time, people don't know what to look for in the reports. So webinar that Brandy's putting on May 31st is going to go over how to review the special education reports for end of year 4 and end of year 3. So that's something that's going to be useful, I think, for your admin to go to if they can.
And if I could add, it already sounds like you do a lot, Mary, but if you know the data that they should be considering and looking at, you can try filtering those reports and minimizing it so it just presents information to them. It can be daunting when you're not familiar with CalPads and you see a whole report. So, I'm not suggesting you do more work, but there is a possibility of that.
Then with that, we are done. Unless I skipped anybody's question, I apologize for that, but I think I got everyone. Crickets. Mario, question 2. Where can we sign up for that SPED training? So that registration info hasn't gone out yet. I believe it will be out through the new SPED listserv that was created. So just be on the lookout for that.
I think I heard Brandy say she's going to send it to both.
Oh, perfect.
The current, yeah, just to keep the LEA admin, CALPADS admins informed that you don't necessarily have to come to that training, but just to let you know it's happening.
Colleen says, color coding and one-on-one meetings help me explain CALPADS to my admin team. They used to run away screaming, but now we are very calm and interested. That's great.
Bring donuts.
Yes. Amy has to go. Have a good evening. Thank you all for the Q&A sessions in today's regional. And then Angela at the 3:48 timestamp gave us the link or the email to subscribe to the SPED listserv. So if you haven't already and you want it to be part of the SPED listserv, that's you could send an email to that. Question 2 from Rebecca. Do we have to attend the SPED training as the LEA admin? I don't want to be on that listserv. You don't have to, right?
Yeah, you don't have to. And in fact, Brandy said she might not have room for all LEA admins. I think she had a limitation of 1,000 folks. And so depending on her turnout for SPED folks, we may not have a lot of room for LEA admins.
Elsa from Eastside, question 2 says, I've been trying to find a clear definition for the opportunity program. Any suggestion? Well, I mean, the code set has a definition. I don't know how clear it is, though, or if you needed something more. Gary's pulling it up now.
Alex, do you know the number off the top of your head?
19, no. I was going to say 191, but I don't, 108. Okay.
I have the data guide open, see if it tell us anything extra.
So Elsa, I don't know if you saw the definition on the code set. Is that, do you want more information on the opportunity program? Okay. And while we're searching for that, there's people talking, different strategies being out there. Cammy's comment 1 says, should be an interesting year. His various switching SPED system this summer. Then have to contend with all the SPED changes as well. Wish us luck. Crossing all our fingers for you, Cammy. You'll be fine, though. It'll be fine.
Yikes. Can I recruit Joshua to come back? Help you guys with that.
Question 2 from Elsa. I've been trying to find a clear oh, sorry. That's the same one, but Nate gave us more information here. So thank you, Nathan, for that link. Hopefully between the code set and the link that Nathan provided, you have enough, Elsa, but I also saw that continuation schools are considered part of the opportunity program, but the code set seems to indicate it's temporary. Okay. I think maybe if you need clarification, I think we need a ticket. Maybe we can, or I don't know if there's a program office at CDE that would be able to answer this. on the link that Nathan provided, it takes you to the CDE page, and it has all sorts of good links on there, and also a contact person. Sunsetta, question 1 says, hello, is there a location of definitions of all SPED reports that I can share with my SPED person? Definitions of the SPED reports. You mean like what they're used for? I don't know that there's
I would say the report mapping, Alex, you get most of them in EOI 4, and then you have to then look at also Fall 1, right? And then a few that are in EOI 3.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so it'll give you a list of all the SPED reports, not so much what they're used for or what to look out for. But I think, though, the webinar that Brandy's going to have on at the end of the month will give you that part of the information, what to look out for, what to check for, who should be looking at those things, type of thing.
In our checklist, we do, though, have a tab on reports, and we do try to say what to look out for. So take a look at EOI 4, the tab on reports, and go to the EOI 4 section.
Mm-hmm.
We have them in a variety of places, but nobody's asked us to consolidate. And maybe when they build that special ed data guide, maybe in that, they will have a table for you. It's a good idea.
Okay. And then Rebecca, Brandy did a great job of what to look for during the quarterly. So the quarterlies do have slides about all the different end of year 3, end of year 4 reports specific to students with disabilities and what to look for. So it's just the kind of a high level of what was going to be provided in that webinar on May 31st. And Cami at 3:54 is giving us a link to the snapshot ODS reports. I think that's the user manual. Instead it says there's a new SPED person, needs help learning reports. Yeah. And at the 3:55 timestamp, Angela's giving us the link to download all quarterly meeting materials. I think we're set.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll see you next week.